Father, and the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God. We begin the month of Kiah. This is the first week, and this is the first gospel in this month. And actually today the readings are all beginnings. We read the first piece from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. People call the letter to the Romans the Gospel of St. Paul. We also read the first piece from the book of Acts. So it's the beginnings of all the books that we read. Today I want to start with a question, and if you had heard me over the last week or so speaking about it, please bear with me. Maybe I will repeat things that you've already heard. First question I wanted to ask today, if you're asked why your Christmas is different, I want us all to be on the same page, and I can't find you or get you, speak to you in any other way. Why your Christmas is celebrated as Copts on the 7th of January, while the Western world in its totality celebrates on the 25th of December. And I hope you can answer that. And today we have to kind of answer that, and we need to educate everybody about these things, because sometimes it becomes a stumbling block. So the question is why we celebrate our Christmas on January 7th. That's what I want to start with. We'll get to the gospel. So if you want to know, the church, the universal church, the Catholic, not the Roman Catholic Church, we're talking in Ecclesia in Catholiki, the universal church, the church when it was one, celebrated Christmas on the same day. Believe it or not, the Christmas was celebrated all in the same day until a certain year when Christmas split. Actually 2 years, from one day to be celebrated in 2 different years. So the year that I'm talking about is 1582, and the next year is 1583. Very interesting piece of history. So let's go back and study this in a little bit. When they made the calendars, the first one to think about a universal calendar for their empire was Julius Caesar. And he asked the astronomers and the mathematicians to calculate for him, or to make for him, a calendar. And they did. And you notice the names of the calendar, of the Julian calendar, that's referred to Julius Caesar, have the names of the Roman gods. One familiar god, maybe the rest of them we don't know, is Mars. Mars is Mars. And he had his name in this calendar, July, Julius. And the next Caesar had his name in this calendar, August. So when they calculated the calendar, they thought about the rotations of the sun and the rotations of the earth. At the time, they didn't know that the earth is a sphere, and it's rotating around itself. They only noticed that there are certain changes that happen cyclically, changes that happen the same thing over and over again. So they said, now we know a rotation of the earth around its axis, a rotation of the earth around its axis is what? What's the rotation of a day? The rotation of the earth around its axis. It's a day, right? When the earth completes one cycle of rotating around its axis, it's a day. What is the rotation of the earth around the sun? It's a year. So if the earth stands in this point, at one point, and then is going to start by turning around itself and turning around the sun, it goes back to the same point, they said, let us calculate how many cycles of this it takes to make one cycle of this. They said, in the time of Julius Caesar, they said it takes 365 times of the earth rotating around itself and a 1/4. So how do you make a year of 365 and 1/4 So we don't have to make a year at 365 and 1/4 of a day. You only have to do 365 and keep adding the quarter for every 4 years to make one more day. We'll put this eventually, they put it in February. And they call that a leap year. And they call the extra day in February a leap day. Time goes by, they used this calendar for 16 centuries, until 1582. By that time, they discovered they had more advanced science, and they were able to notice things more precisely. So they said, well, we discovered, actually, that the Earth does not come back to the same point exactly 365 and 1/4. It comes back to the same point, 365 turns of those, and 6 hours minus 11 minutes. They became more precise. So what are you going to do with the 11 minutes? It seems like we added too much time to the year. They said, we did it before, we can do it again. In the time of Pope in the Roman Catholic Church, his name is Pope Gregory. The church was already split. We had 2 divisions in the church since then. 6th century, the Copts, the Syrians, and the Armenians split from the universal church. There were 2 churches now at the time of 6th century. By the 12th century, there was another split, they call it the Great Schism. The Greek Orthodox and the Russian Orthodox and the Serbian Orthodox and all the Eastern Orthodoxy came out of that union, and it became, they call it the Great Schism. So the church split twice. Now when the Pope of Rome is going to make any change, it doesn't apply to everybody. So what did he say? He said, we added too many days, leap days. If you count 11 minutes, and you can do this as a homework, see how many 11 minutes make a day. How many 11 minutes? We said, every year, it's missing 11 minutes to become 1/4 of a day. So how many 11 minutes you can make a day? They said, if you do the calculation, it comes up to 128 times 11 equals 1 day. If you add 128 plus 128 plus 128 plus 128, you come to a 400. 3 times. You add them 3 times, you come to a 400, almost 400. So as they said, we need to take out 3 days every 400 years. This is where we're going to have an issue. They said, okay, how many 400 years passed since the beginning of the count all the way to the year 1582? And Pope Gregory came with the response, 10 days. You need to take 10 days from the calendar. We added them inappropriately. They don't really fit the cycle. So they said, okay, let's do this. And this is the date exactly. On October 5th, it was a Friday, 1582, it was Thursday, October 4th, the calendar, which is the Julian calendar, still goes on. On Thursday, October 4th, people had the calendar of the Julian calendar, and then on Friday, October 5th, they wake up and Pope Gregory said it's going to be October 15th. So from the 4th on Thursday to the 15th on Friday. So what happens? They canceled from time 10 days. So let me just go back and say, we in 1581 had, what day is the Coptic Christmas? We had our Coptic Christmas as usual on Kiahk 29th. And 29th of this month is Christmas. And that Christmas for us in 1581 was December 25th. In 1582, the year after, when Pope Gregory took those 10 days, what happened? Kiahk 29th did not fall on December 25th. It started falling on January 4th. So 1 year made a huge difference between celebrating on the same day and 10 days later. But then since then, they made a rule, so it doesn't happen again. What's the rule, they said? How you take 3 days out of 400 years? They said, we have to make a rule that applies to everybody, to the end of time. They said, how did you make a rule for a leap year? What's the rule for a leap year? Any year that accepts division by 4 without remainder. So to make a leap year to take away a leap year or 3 leap years every 400 years, then you have to follow this rule. Any centurial year, what's a centurial year? Any year that has 2 zeros on the right side. Any year that has 2 zeros, like 2000, 2100, 2200, these are called centurial years. It ends a century. Any centurial year does not accept division by 400 without remainder is not a leap year. It might accept the division by 4 without a remainder, but it will not accept the division by 400 without a remainder, which means every 400 years you're going to take how many years out from the leap cycle? 3 years. I'll give you an example, practice. 2000 can accept by 4? Yes, it can accept by 4 without remainder. Can it accept by 400 without remainder? Yes, it does. 2000 divided by 400 is 5. Perfect. What about 2100? Can it accept by 4? Yes. But can it accept by 400 without remainder? You take the 2 zeros out, you have 21 by 4. What would you have? 21 divided by 4 is 5, and a remainder, that's not a leap year. 2200. You take the 2 zeros, the 400 2 zeros out, the 2200 zeros out, you got 22 by 4. You divide 22 by 4, it's 5 and 2 remainder. 2300. It goes on and on until you reach 2400. Does it accept the division without remainder? It does. Okay? So this is how they did it. It's a very smart way. So now you guarantee that every 400 years will cancel 3 leap years. They are the centurial years that does not accept the division by 400 without remainder. So they said, since he took out the 10 days, how many days were added more? From the 16th century all the way to the 20th century, how many more? We have 3 more. 3, add them to the 10, we become 13 days. These are the exact differences today we have between the 2 calendars. Now it's called the Gregorian calendar, reference to Gregory, the Pope of Rome, who did enforce this. One country after another started to accept this, and many churches accepted. Protestant first resisted it, and then they accepted it. The Church of England accepted it. So all the countries in the Christian world accepted the Gregorian calendar and became the standard calendar for everybody. That's what you have today. Your calendar is a Gregorian calendar, but you have also a Coptic calendar, which is not a Gregorian calendar. It's actually almost a Julian calendar. It's different, but it's reconciled with the Julian calendar. If you have the Julian calendar with you, if you look into Julian calendars today, 29th of Kiahk is the 25th of December in the year before. So this is how to explain this. So if somebody asks you, why do you have a different date for Christmas? Say, because we are old calendars. We follow the Julian calendar. We have a problem, though, because the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar are supposed to be sun calendars, solar calendars. And our agricultural calendar should follow the sun. So if, imagine, you have to have certain seasons for sowing and harvesting and stuff, and our calendar, the Coptic calendar, is drifting, keeps advancing. One day in 1,000 years or so, maybe 2,000 years or 10,000 years, the Christmas will fall in summer. So how would the farmers do with things like this? The seasons for sowing and planting and harvesting is very much dependent on the seasons. And if our calendar is drifting and is not accurate and keeps moving on and on and on, what will happen to the seasons and the farming schedule? Will be messed up. So I guess we supposed to do a correction as well. We need to do a correction. We didn't know good, we didn't know as much in the time we started our Coptic calendar, so now we know more. And if we have done the correction, we don't need to change the dates. You don't need to abandon your Coptic calendar. The Coptic calendar itself has to do the same thing that the Julian calendar went through, and then we will reconcile again with the solar calendar. That's the take on it. So if somebody asks you, you say, we are old calendars, we follow the Julian calendar. There has been a change in the Julian calendar into the Gregorian, and that change came up to 13 days, and that's what, it's going to be 14 days. Actually, it comes on and off January 8th, every 4 or 5 years it comes to be January 8th, if you notice. In the next century, 2100, will not be a leap year in the Gregorian calendar, but it will be a leap year in the Coptic calendar, and we'll have one more day. So it will be definitely January 8th. Rabbina, God give you long life. If 2150, it will be January 8th. And in 2220, it will be January 9th. And in 2300, it will be January 10th. And it keeps moving 3 days every 400 years. That's the answer. Okay. Now you got this answer, and I hope you understood what it means. So you are old calendars. And many churches, actually the Greeks are divided. Some of them old calendar, some of them new calendar. The Russian, I'm sure they are old calendar. Armenian is old calendar. There's lots of churches that are old calendar, and they have that difference. They don't. So I know for sure, and I was asked the question, why Armenians celebrate on the 6th? I don't know. We celebrate on the 6th, actually, the eve of the 7th. So maybe that's what they do too, but they celebrate in the morning. Now the gospel of today. The gospel is about a priest, an old priest, in the time of King Herod, and his name was Zacharias. He was supposed to offer incense in the temple. And this priest offering incense, it's written this way, it's in the hour of prayer. He goes to offer incense in the hour of prayer, and the old temple was different. It's not like now. If we imagine this is the temple of Jerusalem in the old times, and this is the Holy of Holies, you will never, and if you're a Jew, never see this place open. Completely shut. And the priest would stand before a shut curtain to offer prayers. And the letter to the Hebrews said, it's a hint that our way to heaven is not open yet. It was closed. And he had a little podium here. It was a square thing, tall like this Mangalia, but level. And he had it here, and he would offer incense here. Who would be with him in the church, this place? No one. No one. Where would you be if you were in the Old Testament? Outside. So the priests were allowed only to this place, and the congregation was allowed only in the foyer. Why is that? We were not very much yet there. We were not brought close to God yet. So he's offering incense, and all of a sudden, I said this to the kids, they had a retreat in the church, and they were sleeping in the church. So I said to them, what if an angel appeared to you at night? What would you do? And you're alone by yourself. It's a dark place. There's a candelabra, there's a little bit of candlelight, and all of a sudden he sees a man standing in front of him out of nowhere. He's not expecting anybody. No visitors come to the church without being announced. Why is during the incense? Why this good news that's given to Zacharias during incense? Very simple. Because incense in the Bible, we had this talk in the fellowship, incense in the Bible is very much linked to prayer. Incense is either prayer or a sacrifice with prayer. That's what the book of Revelation would say. It's either itself a prayer and this is in chapter 5, where there's priests in heaven and St. John saw those priests, and when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 priests fell down before the Lamb, each having a harp and a golden bowl full of incense. What's a golden bowl full of incense? Censer, Sharia, which are the prayers of the saints. So in heaven, prayers come before God as incense. It's the same like David said, or the psalmist, not David actually, it was not David, who said, let my prayer arise as incense. Your prayer before God is as incense. And there are servants in heaven who offer those prayers to God as incense. This is one thing is given to us from the book of Revelation. You go to chapter 8, there is an angel offering incense. Then another angel having a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints. You have those two images. Prayers are incense, and incense is offered with prayer. That's why when you come to church and you see Abuna offering incense, it is our work to do what? To pray. That's the best time, the perfect time. In fact, we are given 2 offerings to God. We, the people of God, we can offer God 2 offerings with our prayers. That is very much to the heart of the service. And the first offering is incense. What is the second offering? And it's the book of Malachi, the first time he speaks about incense outside the temple. The last book, very last book of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Old Testament. What's this prophet is saying? In chapter 1 in Malachi, verse 11, he says, from the rising of the sun, even to its going down. And he's talking about location, not time. He's talking about covering the whole earth. My name shall be great among the Gentiles. He speaks about people who are not Jews. In every place, incense shall be offered to my name, which is shocking if you're a Jew and listening to this. He asked Jews, how do you explain this? How do you explain that incense will be offered outside the altar in Jerusalem? The only place Zacharias could offer incense is inside the temple and on front of that altar. So how do you explain, you Jews, that Malachi is saying it shall happen, that incense will be offered to God everywhere? And the pure offering, 2 things. So incense and the pure offering. So incense is incense. What's the pure offering? What are the other things that we offer in the liturgy? The body and blood of Jesus Christ. Those are the gifts given to the Gentiles that God said for us to do. Not in the temple in Jerusalem anymore, but it will be where? Are you asleep? Where? In everywhere, every place. So when you come to church during the incense offering, and we as a priest I offer incense during many times. So when the gospel is read, I offer incense. And what do? I pray for the sick and traveling, the wind, the plants, the rivers, the sick, and I pray for the president. I pray either you like him or not. I pray for the we have to pray for him, and we pray for the sad and the troubled and the catechumens, the newcomers. I pray for everybody during the reading of the gospel as I offer incense. Whenever I offer incense, I'm saying litanies, which is request from God on behalf of everybody. You see Abuna offering incense, what you should do? You pray. That's what is said here. In the gospel that we read today, that's what is said here. That he was offering incense in the hour of prayer, and the people were outside actually praying. Now, when the angel appeared to him in the hour of prayer as he offers incense, and he says to him, It's very interesting now you read the words and you can put this background in your mind. He says to him, "Do not be afraid, Zacharias." The first thing he says, your prayer is heard. Because it is the hour of prayer. He had been doing this for a long time, but it seems like Zacharias had forgotten what he was praying about. Why? Because he says, "I don't know what you're talking about. You're telling me about the child. I'm going to have a child? I'm an old man. My wife is an old woman. What? You prayed for this. The angel's telling you your prayers are heard. So why you are not believing?" The only explanation that he gave up. He stopped. He stopped praying. For the long time he stopped praying. In the Jewish community, by the order of Moses, you get to be a priest at age 30, you retire at age 60 maybe. So he's about to retire. He's been praying for a child since he was 30 years old. Maybe after 10 years, what happened? He gave up. He said, "No, I'm not praying for it anymore." Why? And why would God wait all this time to give him a child? Why would God wait until he is an old man to give him a child? First of all, because God is going to give him St. John the Baptist, and St. John the Baptist will be a prophet to prepare for Christ. So he has to wait. St. John the Baptist has to wait until Jesus is coming. 6 months apart they have to be. So by the time St. John to come to the world, Jesus have to be ready to come. And here is something for you. So why is St. St. Zacharias and Elizabeth interested in a child? Think about that. Why they want a child? I'll tell you why he wanted a child. Because Moses said, if you don't have kids, you're not blessed. If you are going to be blessed, I give you a lot of kids. And he said, if you are not making the commandments and you're not righteous, you're not going to be blessed in anything. But if you do the commandments of God and you become righteous, I'll bless you in everything you do. So for him, it meant to be a good man, blessed. St. Elizabeth wanted to be covered, because if she doesn't have children, she is ashamed. She's ashamed. She is reproached. So basically they want to have a child for themselves. But why would God want St. John and Jesus? What's the point of God having St. John? By the way, St. John is going to be killed. And Jesus will be killed. Both of them. Why? For the service. For his work. So because Zacharias wanted things for himself, and for Elizabeth, his wife, they had to wait. And almost the drawback of this, he gives up. It's not like a child. You know, the Pickering 2 years old, when they don't get what they want, what do? They throw a temper tantrum and then they turn off. They don't want to talk. They don't want to say anything. They shut down. But if they want to do things that actually belongs to their parents, if they want to do something for God, they never shut down. That's why I think one thing we learn from this, prayers are never ignored. Everything you say will be remembered, and God will do them in the right time. Problem is, you're thinking like a baby. We think like babies. If I don't get what I want, I'm not playing. I don't want to do it anymore. But what Zacharias missed is, this is Christmas. We're preparing for the birth of Christ. And the main point of Christmas is not about taking. It is about giving. That's why one of the best examples that actually answer to this, and she's very much at the heart of this story, is Hannah, the mother of Samuel. Look at what Hannah said to God. Hannah said to God this, if you give me a child, what would she do with it? I'll give him to you. So she's more thinking about giving God. And For that reason, she was given a child immediately. Immediately. That's why it is important to think. We're coming to Christmas and we're preparing for Christmas. And we all think about what should we have for Christmas. Kids excited about Christmas, they expect presents. What do adults expect? Parents usually are in the giving mode. They give. But we think about outside the box, of family and friends and church and what we should do to make people around us happy. We should think more. We should think about what should we do to make everybody happy as much as we can. And that's the thing. So the angel said to Zacharias, he will make you happy. And everyone who will hear of his birth will be happy. That's the season that we're preparing for, to make others happy. It's not about us. And we ask that. This is the spirit, because it's blessed, more blessed to give than to take. And it's more blessed to think about others than to think about ourselves. And most importantly, to think about the will of God, what God wants from me, than to think what I want from God. And if I give God what he gives me, this will be the beginning of endless blessing. To him is the glory, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and forever.